Squibbler, and I'm going to talk to you today about memoir writing, some guides for creating a compelling life story. Happy to have you join us today. So in this webinar, you're going to learn a historical progression of the memoir genre. You can see kind of where the genre has gone and where it's going. We're going to look at some practical tips to share your life story or create your life story. And that's going to be blended with some ways that AI can help you perfect your memoir. So it's a really good tool to use for this genre. And we'll also take a look at the very end at some emerging trends in memoir writing, what agents and publishing houses are looking for now. So we're going to start off with talking about a little bit about the brief history of memoirs and some of the early expectations from the earliest memoirs, what those expectations were. They have changed greatly over time, and so have what people expect from the genre. What we read in the past is very different from what we read today. So in the early stages of the memoir in the 1 BCE era, to the 19th century, most memoirs were written by important leaders, figures, or explorers, and almost all were Western and male. And Julius Caesar's Commentaries on the Gallic Wars is a good example of this if you're looking for an older memoir to read. These early memoirs are fact-based. There's not much introspection in them. You're not going to hear Caesar talk about his feelings about fighting the Gauls. So it's going to be more about strategy, warfare. So the purpose was to document historical events in these early memoirs, and that was how things lasted and progressed until the 1800s. From the early to mid 20th century memoirs, things began to change after the 2 world wars. Those were huge events in human history, and we wanted to see how people responded to these. So memoirs began to include experiences from ordinary people. We hadn't seen that before. So people who may have lived through World War II, maybe a soldier in World War II, would write his memoir and people would read it. Memoirs are no longer written just by public figures then. And then the change in the writing, the style of writing changes as well. While some memoirs used to maintain a formal style, there are now new voices that are using more reflective and narrative tones. So there's storytelling engaged with this. And there's more reflection on the part of the author on what they have gone through, and they're thinking about these events. Memoirs are still exploring history. We're all part of history, but they're also including storytelling elements now. So it's good to have both of those in your work. Late 20th century memoirs, things change again. Celebrity memoirs become very popular, the tell-alls that we've seen, even some of them have made it to film. Memoirs also start to explore heavier topics like trauma, family dynamics, and identity. These are all things we're seeing on bookshelves today. The writing style is more creative, and narrative is emphasized. So it kind of blends with creative nonfiction. It's become a genre all of its own. What's important in the late 20th century memoir is a compelling narrative voice. That's still true today. It's important that you have a strong voice. Writers try to connect with readers on an emotional level in late 20th century memoirs, and they're often stressing universal truths in their experience. So they're saying, I've gone through this, and I want to share this because it's something many of us experience. We're now in the early 20th century, so this is the period you're writing, if you're writing a memoir now. And things are now changing again. Memoirs are exploring deeply personal and often controversial issues. So don't hesitate to write your truth. Readers also appreciate vulnerability and authenticity. They want to hear the truth about what goes on. They don't expect you to be a hero. They don't expect you to be Caesar. You may have had struggles with, for example, drug addiction, and people want to read about this, but they want honesty from it. Voice and narrative styles can be experimental, and they can blend genres, becoming creative nonfiction, as we saw in earlier 20th century memoirs. Modern memoirs aim to foster empathy and understanding. That's sort of an underlying goal for many of them. They provide a platform for underrepresented voices and challenging societal norms. We become a global readership. So we want to see what people are thinking and doing in different countries, from different cultures, and from places that maybe have not been represented in traditional books and memoirs. The modern memoir also often seeks to provoke thought. It inspires change and offers solace to readers facing similar struggles. So here are some tips for you, and I've included ways that you can use the AI that Squibbler has in some of these tips that will help you write your memoir. And I think the most important one is to make sure you find your focus and you don't lose it as you're writing. So you want to try to develop the overall theme of your memoir first. For example, is your story about your ability to survive challenges over time? We see this a lot with people who have experienced great losses or challenges. Perhaps they've had, a severe illness, or they've had great loss in their lives. So we read a lot of memoirs that are involved and about endurance. Or you might be reading about something like the power of loyalty in the face of obstacles, like we saw in Jeanette Wall's The Glass Castle, which also was made into a film. So it's really important, and these are the two questions you can ask yourself. What is the story that you're trying to tell, and why is your story important? And keep that as your focus as you're developing your outline or writing your book. Tip 2 is to create an outline. You want to organize your thoughts and experiences into a coherent structure. And one thing that we have for you that we'll be uploading with this webinar on our Discord channel is a worksheet to help you outline your events in your life to create your memoir. You do want to organize your thoughts and experiences into a coherent structure that fit with the overall theme or message in your book. An outline can help you stay on track and ensure that your memoir has a clear beginning, middle, and end. Another thing that's very important with the modern memoir that we didn't see in the past is to be honest and authentic. It's a key in modern memoir writing. You should be truthful about your experiences, even if they're difficult to share, and even if you're not the hero in some of the events that you've had. We learn from these things. And one way that you can use the AI here is that you can use the guided writer in first person and generate the tone that you need for each section. So that's a really helpful way to work on your honesty and authenticity in your memoir. Another important tip here is that since memoirs are now blending with creative nonfiction and narration is important, one of the rules that is generally important for fiction writing is now also important for nonfiction, and that's show and don't tell. You want to use vivid descriptions and sensory details to bring your story to life. So one thing you can do is direct the AI in Scribbler to describe a section by using the describe feature, and then you can toggle the sensory element that you want to include in a passage or in a chapter. So for example, if you want to include something that's got a lot of sound in an experience or an event that you're telling, you can use the sound feature in Describe to create that section. Instead of just telling the reader what happened, you also want to show them your experiences and emotions. And one way to accomplish this is by using the show and not tell feature when you're rewriting with the rewrite feature in Scribbler. So that will help you as well in your revisions. Tip 5 is to develop your voice. Your unique voice is what makes your memoir stand out. So that's really important as well. Write in a style that feels natural to you and reflects your personality. And the AI will learn from what you're already generating and try to continue in that same vein. Scribbler has a webinar too for you and a worksheet for developing voice in the resource section on Discord that can help you if you're struggling with developing your voice in your memoir. You also want to focus on specific events. Most memoirs are not a clear timeline where people are talking about what happened from their birth to their later years. They focus on things that are the most important and what they learn from them. So you want to pick periods that are significant to your story. The best memoirs are episodic and they skip over years and time to focus on what is going to be more important to the reader and what the reader can connect with. Another tip for you is to include dialogue. We humans are very interested in how we interact with each other. So you want to incorporate dialogue to make your story more dynamic and show interactions between characters or figures in your memoir. You can use Scribbler's guided writer and generate a scene and toggle the dialogue bar to achieve the level of dialogue you want. You can also include the people that you have in certain sections by creating them as elements, and then use the generate a scene, pick the people in that scene, and then have the dialogue generated. That will help you create some creative nonfiction here. You don't want to just recount events, right? You want to reflect on the meeting. That's the reason you're writing a memoir. You want people to understand what you learned from it, and hopefully they can too. So reflect on these events that you're sharing, the significance and how they have shaped you, what you learned from there. Share your insights and personal growth. Your readers are going to be interested in what you learned from your experiences, whether they're good or bad. You can also use the rewrite function here once you finish writing your draft, and you can customize it with reflective to revise on area that you feel need more reflection. Tip 9, you want to be selective with details. You want to only include the details that are relevant to your story and enhance the narrative. For first drafts, for a lot of memoirs, people include too much information that bogs down the story and the overall theme. So be very, very selective with what you choose to share. Too many unnecessary details can bog down the reader. A lot of decisions that you decide to include or omit in your sections can be addressed in the editing point of your writing journey, and the rewrite function of Scribbler can help you eliminate redundant or drawn out sections. So that's another good way you can use AI to help you pare down to what's really important. Tip 10 is to meet your reader with shared emotions. You want to share your emotions with your reader by including your vulnerabilities and personal struggles. The modern memoir reader, they're looking for raw, honest truth and emotions. We're no longer reading Caesar, looking for someone who sees themselves in a heroic way. We're looking for honesty and truth. So include your real responses to events and the people featured in your story. If something was awful, let your reader know it was awful. If something was just wonderful, let your reader know. Let them experience those emotions with you. Use a consistent point of view. This is important as well. Decide which person you're going to stick in first or third, or whichever one you're going to go with, and stick with it throughout your memoir. Consistency of voice is extremely important in any narrative, but especially in memoirs, because we, your readers, are going to be trying to stick with you throughout your journey and the events you describe. So you don't want to lose us along the way by switching voices. You also want to avoid cliches and generalizations. Be specific and original in your writing. Your story should be unique and reflect your specific voice and experiences. You want to avoid overused phrases and generalizations that can make your story feel less personal. You can accomplish this in two ways. You can use the Smart Writer and toggle the creativity bar under the guided writer, but you could also do things like toy with the sensory details and maybe include some metaphors, because the AI in Scribbler is really good at generating metaphors as well. Tip 13, when you have a draft, it's good to get feedback. You want to share your work with trusted friends, family, or writing groups to get constructive feedback. You can click on File and Share Project and have your reader add comments to your writing in the application. So that's really helpful as well. You can ask your readers to make notes of places that lost their interest. This is the kiss of death for writers, right? You want to make sure that your readers are engaged with what they're reading. This will help you tighten up weak areas. It's also helpful to get different reader perspectives, because they can help improve your memoir and then prepare you for feedback when you go on submission, if you're submitting to publishing houses or to agents. Tip 14, you want to edit mercilessly. Be prepared to revise and cut parts of your memoir that just don't fit into that overall theme. If it's not serving your story, cut it out, even if it's important to you personally. If your readers that you have say that a section is losing their interest, you might consider retooling it or deleting it. Tip 15 is to keep writing. Writing a memoir is a long and challenging process. You have a lot of information in your life that you're trying to generate into a coherent story. So stay committed, write regularly, and don't be discouraged by setbacks. You can use the goal, daily goal or file goal function in Scribbler. And the other really useful tool is the list function. Here is where you can keep track of your progress. And also you can rate your writing here. You can give yourself a boost by giving yourself 5 stars for a good section. And then if there are some sections that need work, you can label those with maybe a lower number of stars for editing. Okay, so here at the end, I want to talk about some current trends in memoir writing. It may connect with you if you're working on something like this and you fit these trends. There is now a focus on diverse voices. So a lot of people are interested, as I said earlier, in reading about people from different cultures. There's a growing emphasis on diversity and inclusivity, with memoirs being written by individuals from marginalized communities, maybe homeless people, maybe people of color, maybe LGBTQ individuals, people with disabilities. So it's becoming much more inclusive, and we're not just focusing on, as we were in the past, the Western male who had accomplished something in wartime. The style is also trending in a narrative approach that's innovative, with memoirists blending personal stories with broader social and political commentary. So there's a branching off in there as well. There's also a trend towards multimedia memoirs, incorporating elements like photographs, artwork, and digital media. And Scribbler is, of course, has the ability to insert these things in your memoir as you write as well. The purpose in current trends aims to highlight diverse experiences and challenge stereotypes that people have, and then contribute to ongoing conversations about equality and justice. It's one of those things that is a worldwide goal. So these are things to keep in mind, and if you fit under this is what publishers and agents are looking for in memoirs. There's also a trend in the form of modern memoirs. So contemporary memoirs are also blurring the lines between memoir and other genres. So you'll see memoirs that are also partially self-help. Maybe you've gone through something really difficult that somebody else can learn from. That's something that's very popular. There's also the hybrid form of travel writing and memoir. You'll see a lot of blogs on this. They're very popular. And investigative journalism. There are a lot of investigative journalist memoirs, former police officers, former victims, writing their stories in the form of memoirs. The style is also blending more with creative expression that makes the memoir more engaging and multifaceted. So you can sort of play around with different styles in your writing as well. And the purpose that that is changing as well. It's not just to document a historical event, it's also to inform and to entertain, inspire, often offering practical advice or insights along with storytelling. So this is a good change from past memoirs as well. Overall, the evolution of memoirs is reflecting a broader shift towards greater openness and inclusivity and creativity in literature, with an emphasis on truth and emotional resonance. So keep those ideas in mind. They should resonate and they should be honest. So in this webinar, we have talked about expectations from the memoir genre, what was expected in the past and what was expected as time passed with this genre. We looked at some practical tips to create your life story and how AI can help you perfect your writing. And then we looked at some of the current trends in memoir writing and in the forms that they're taking. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this webinar on memoir writing. And remember, this will be uploaded into Discord for you with a memoir worksheet that can help you organize your events in your life as you're writing your life story. Thank you, and keep writing.